Guys, it's Kelly here, and I am doing another video for Make It Crafty. Today we're going to take a little bit of a different approach. We're going to talk a lot about clean and simple cards. So when I started my card, I printed it out twice. This is the Elvet stamp from Make It Crafty, and I printed it out cropped, and I printed it out in the center. If you're looking for just the coloring, you can go ahead and skip ahead to the 2-minute mark, by the way. So here there's both lots of white space and there's a lot of opportunities to, I guess, to kind of do what you want with the card, whether it be color it and pop it up or mask it, which is what I'm going to do today. But I think there's a lot of confusion out there about what clean and simple is. And I don't think that there is a hard and fast rule. You know, like I said, you can, color them and die cut them or put in a background behind them. I think a lot of people think like if they want to do a clean and simple card, they just have to stamp an image down and walk away from it and they're done. And it doesn't have to be like that at all. There still are design elements to take into consideration and different colors that you want to use. So I decided that I was going to go ahead and go with the one that was cropped, and I am going to put some pattern in there. I am going to put some embellishments on there. Being clean and simple doesn't mean that you can't use anything but a stamp. So one of the first rules, you've heard me say it a lot in my videos, I'm sure, is white space. And white space does not have to be white. It can be colored. It is basically just an area on your card that doesn't have anything on it. So today I'm going to use the Holiday Knit Stencil from Tim Holtz, the Miracles of the Holiday stamp set from Hero Arts, which is a little bit older, to kind of build my card around this Elvet digital stamp. And I have a mask that's cut out of copy paper. I'm going to go ahead and put that down, and that bell was off for some reason. And then I'm going to put my stencil over top of that. I use a repositionable adhesive, which is Tombow Mono Multi Glue. When it dries, it is repositionable. It's not permanent. So I use that on my copy paper mask, and I also use that on the back of all of my stencils. And I'm going to go ahead and put on some Distress ink. So first things first, as you can see here, I am using a pattern. However, I'm not using very much of it. I'm only using it as kind of like a halo around my image because I want to conserve that white space. Now, maybe you're, want to use your stencil with texture paste. Still okay. Still can be a clean and simple card. Maybe you don't want to use a stencil. Maybe you want to use pattern paper. Again, totally fine. You can, bring in little bits of patterns, or multiple patterns on small images. Those are all things that you can still use in a clean and simple card. You just want to be very very particular about what you put on the card. You can't use all of the things. Like you can't use texture paste and distressing, stenciling, and pattern paper on a card. That's not going to be clean and simple. But you can use little bits of all of those things. So if I had chose the main image where I printed it out as the center focal point, you could color her and cut her out and put her on pattern paper. Marika from our Make It Crafty coloring team, she does that all the time, and her cards are still very clean and very simple. So once I get my distress inking done, the last color I'm using here is Blueprint Sketch, which is one of their new ones. It's like a super pretty royal blue. I really, really like it. I'm going to go ahead and peel up my stencil, and then I'll go ahead and peel up my mask, and you'll be able to see that there is some interest. There is, some layers going on and a little bit of pattern, multiple colors. It's like an ombre with the blue. But again, on that left and top right-hand side of my card, there's still a lot of white space because I guess the purpose of making something clean and simple is having one main focal point, like one thing that draws your eye. And when I say one, I don't necessarily mean one stamp. I mean it as a true focal point, because I've done clean and simple cards where I'll have like a spray of butterflies, but they're all interconnected, and they don't have much else to them besides, maybe some coloring. You can do clean and simple with paper piecing. You can do it with a lot of different elements, and I hate to think that there's people out there who are so overwhelmed by what clean and simple is that they just don't even want to try it, because I think that it's such a beautiful way to make cards. Just something that is, when you look at it, it catches your eye. You can see everything at once. Where with your more maybe shabby chic or very layered style of cards, you might have to look at a card, 5 or 6 times before you see all of the elements that are on there. Which again, those are beautiful in their own right, but I am drawn to something that I can look at it and it has beautiful clean lines and minimal embellishments, and there's one thing that just, takes your breath away. That's what I'm drawn to. So speaking of minimal embellishments, that's another thing about clean and simple cards. You are not going to have a lot of embellishments. Does that mean you can't put ribbon on it? Absolutely not. Does that mean you can't put buttons or sequins or rhinestones or whatever embellishment of choice you want to use on your card? No, you can use all of those things. You have to use them sparingly. You have to make a choice. Pick the one you love the best. Pick the one that you feel like really adds something to your card. For me, right now I'm kind of in a sequin phase. Before that it was rhinestones. I did use ribbon at some point in my card making, but I was never very good at it. I just never felt like it was home on my cards. I more did it, I guess, because it was trendy. And if you've watched any of my really early videos, you've heard me say this, don't fall into what's trendy. Find something that you love, whatever that is, and do that well. That was one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given from a card making friend. Whatever it is that you love, find it, do it well. For me, it's clean and simple, and it's coloring. I really love being able to bring an image to life with my Copics. So anyway, so you can use embellishments, just very minimal. So rule 1, conserve your white space. Rule 2, minimal embellishments. And you hate to think that there's all of these rules, because rules are made to be broken. Like I remember Paper Crafts magazine, they did a design, like one of the magazines that featured like all these different kinds of design rules, and they taught you all about what was acceptable for clean and simple, what was acceptable for the shabby, for layered, for classic, all of these things. And then the very end of the magazine, they taught you how to break all those rules. So, I mean, basically at the end of the day, it comes down to what is going to make you happy. And there's been plenty of times where I've started a card as clean and simple, and it didn't end up that way because it just needed something more. But whatever it is that you're gonna love, just do that. For God's sake, just do that. Whatever it is that makes you happy, and don't worry so much about what other people think. But for the clean and simple ones, really it's just finding that focal point. For me, when I look at them, I want to see that focal point, and then everything else should lead your eye to it. I've seen other clean and simple card makers where their sentiment is a little more loose. Like if you're looking at this card that we're coloring now, maybe they would put the sentiment up at the top left where that white area is. I like mine what I call more tight. I like my sentiment closer to my image. If I would have put it in the top left, I would have felt the need to connect it somehow to my elf. That's just the way my brain works. When I see it, it's just like over there floating off on its own. It's not something that I care for. So when I stamp my sentiment for this one, I put it in the middle left, because then it was connected to her and I could still conserve my white space. Now putting it in the top left isn't wrong, it's just not something that I'm drawn to. So you'll have to figure out for sentiment placement what works best for you, whether or not it's having something that's a super tight design in the middle, or if it's a little looser. But like I was saying before, you can still use pattern papers and different things like that, or multiple patterns. You just have to use them in small amounts. Like you're not going to put half your card is this pattern, half your card is that pattern, and then a layer of colored cardstock, and then another layer of pattern paper. That's not going to be clean and simple. But again, that doesn't mean it has to be one layer. I gravitate toward one layer cards just because I happen to think that they look cool. Like I love when you look at a image and it looks like it's super dimensional and it's actually flat panel. But you could cut them out, fussy cut them, or die cut them, onto a square and pop that up, layer, some colored cardstock behind it, or, maybe even a little bit of a pattern behind it. And all of those things are still going to, depend upon the amounts that you use. Remember, it's still going to be deemed a clean and simple card. They have something called the gallon, pint, quart rule when it comes to color. You should have a gallon of one color, you should have a pint of another, and a quart of another, and then a pint of your last one. So a lot, a little, and a teeny tiny little bit. When you're doing clean and simple, you could probably apply the same rule, except your gallon should be your white space, whatever your white space is. And then your wait, hold on. Quart. See, look, math was not my strong suit, yo. Like measurements. Not my strong suit. But your quart should be what your focal point is. Like it should take up a good portion of your card. It should not be as much as your white space, but it should not be as little as your pint, which would be your embellishments. Whatever patterns you want to bring in, whatever sequins, rhinestones, all those things that you want to bring into your card should be a pint. And everything on your card should be purposeful. There shouldn't be anything that you're putting on there that doesn't serve a purpose in making your card better. There's, gosh, how long ago was that? Probably when I first started card making, so maybe like 6 years ago. The style of scrapbooking was, this beautiful prima flowers and these flourish rhinestones, and they were just huge and everywhere, and people were putting them on everything, and they were putting like 5 and 6 of them on their scrapbook pages. And then I started seeing where people were using a 12 by 12 piece of scrapbook paper, and they were using the prima flowers and they were using the rhinestones, but they were only doing one picture, and they were maybe doing it in the bottom right hand corner of this 12 by 12 scrapbook page. So it was kind of like the start of a clean and simple style. They were still using the embellishments that were trendy, but they were using them in a way that made you really look at that photograph versus really look at the embellishments. That's why they're called embellishments, guys. They're not there to be your focal point. They're there to enhance the image that you have. So whatever that might be. So I think that's pretty much it. If you have any other questions about like what a clean and simple card is, and like I said, I don't think that there's anything that's like completely non-breakable rule, minus that white space thing. That's pretty important. But just kind of look at other people's cards and get a feel for what's going to be yours. They have a new thing now called clean and layered, which means you get maybe a few more layers, a few more die cuts. It's not as what is the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say sparse because that makes it sound like clean and simple cards are missing something, and they're not. I guess it's not as minimalistic as a true clean and simple card. So yeah, so from here we're pretty far along in the coloring now. I think that this little stamp is totally adorable. I never even thought to crop my digital images until Zoe did it as a challenge. The Make It Crafty team did it as a challenge over the summer, and then I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. Why did I never crop these things before? I love them like this because I enjoy coloring bigger images, but I had, like I said, never even dawned on me that I could just color part of the image and so that it would be bigger. I'm still working on how to color my clothes. I am I guess I'm not so pleased with the way her white shirt came out. I really think her jumper came out cute. And I struggled a little bit with the hat, which you'll see here in a minute. I was just trying to, I wanted it to look like it was folded over, you know, because those hats don't really have any form to them. They're just kind of like big floppy hats. So I was trying to get some curves and wrinkles in there. And at first I wasn't really happy with how it came out. I was able to kind of salvage it, so yay. But if you haven't seen my Copic coloring videos before, I start with my lightest color and I lay in where I want my shadows to be. And then I move out to my next color. I usually work in groups of 4. That's just what makes me feel like I get the best blend. So I have 2 quote unquote medium colors in between, and then my darkest shading and my lightest highlight. So this is good God, R29, and this is going to be my second to darkest color, and laying that back in the second layer, and then R35 is my second layer, second darkest color. What am I even saying? It's one of my middle tones. How about that? So here's where I decided I didn't really like the way the hat was going, and I felt like that middle part needed a little bit more shading. So once I put in that second dark portion, I felt like it came out much, much better. And then I just went over with a coat of my lightest color. The last thing I'm going to do is color this little bell gold. And just like with black and whites, you want to be aware of where you're putting your shading, because that's what's going to make a metallic object look gold versus just like a bunch of yellows on a paper. I always outline all of my images just because I like a bold outline. It also helps me fix any edges where I might have made a mistake. After I was done with that, I went in with my white gel pen and just added some highlights on the bell, on her little ponytail holders, and on the berries. Just, you know, just for a little something. And then I also wanted to put in an outline to kind of give her a standout from the background. So it's going to blend into the background. It's a light blue color, so it'll blend in, but it'll also help her kind of pop out. And again, you know, these are things that you can do for clean and simple that don't add bulk, they don't add busyness, but they help that focal point really stand out. So I'm going to use my Misty to stamp my sentiment, and this is because, let's say I got some tape down there. I wanted the sending, what does it say? Sending Christmas to be up above the J. The way that it came was a little too long for me to snug it into where I wanted. So I put tape down on the part that I don't want ink to have on. I ink it up, and then I remove the tape, and then I can stamp that down and not stamp the sending Christmas portion. So I did the same thing. I masked the joy this time, and this is me just checking to make sure that stamp is clean. I highly recommend that you do that if you're going to separate your stamps like I did here, because you never know if it's really clean. Like, it might look clean, but you never really know. And then I just went ahead and outlined that joy with my white gel pen to set it apart from the coloring. And I didn't need to do it with the sending Christmas portion. It was on the white. I didn't even really need to do it to the J, but I'm a sucker for consistency. So here's me adding some clear Pretty Pink Posh sequins. And again, there are embellishments on there, but it's just very minimal. And some clear Wink of Stella, which I absolutely love. To add to my cards. It's just like a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of twinkle to give it a little something. So that is pretty much the card completed. And so I hope you guys learned something. I hope you're getting more comfortable with the idea of a clean and simple card. Like I said, if you have any questions, please leave them for me on the blog or on YouTube, and I will do what I can to answer them for you. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you later. Bye.